Chapter 5682. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up Mo Yunjue in front of her. Although they had only been apart for a few months, when she saw him for the first time, she had a completely different feeling. The murderous aura that hit her in the face showed that Mo Yunjue had definitely experienced a baptism of blood during this period of time. Presumably, the mercenary mission he had accepted was not simple, otherwise, there would not be such a strong murderous aura. Yunjue, it seems that you have improved a lot during this period of time. Even if she did not know Mo Yunjue's true cultivation at this moment, just by feeling his aura, she knew that it was not just a little bit stronger than before. Mo Yunjue's usually cold face raised a faint smile that was almost invisible. It's just a few missions in the forest, that's all. I have improved a little. No one ignored Mo Yunjue's words. His cultivation talent was first class, and coupled with the fact that he had never slacked off in his cultivation, even if it was just a short few months, they could imagine that he must have been extremely busy during this period of time and did not slack off at all. Right, this time at the Mercenary Guild, did you know Huang Futing? Bewitching suddenly asked. Mo Yunjue nodded. When I was at the Mercenary Guild, Huang Futing was also a rather famous mercenary, but we did not have much contact before. It was only when you sent the cultivators to find me that I found out that their relationship with you was not shallow, and that was how I got to know them. Their performance at the Mercenary Guild was not bad? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a trace of expectation. In fact, after getting to know Huang Futing, she felt that this person's ability was extraordinary, but this time, he had led so many darkness attribute cultivators to gain experience, so they could not help but be worried. I know that they are all darkness attribute cultivators, but they hid very well, and no one discovered them. Mo Yunjue's tone became gentler. Moreover, they worked very hard during the missions. I could feel that they worked so hard to improve their strength as quickly as possible. You can rest assured that with their strength, there won't be any problems. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching looked at each other and felt relieved. That's good, then we can rest assured. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang continued, Yunjue, when we returned this time, we handed your letter to the pavilion master of the Shirtian Pavilion. Mo Yunjue paused for a moment, but did not say anything. Bailey Hongzhuang hesitated for a moment. He asked us to take good care of you. When these words were spoken, Mo Yunjue's expression clearly stiffened. He opened his mouth but did not say anything, as if he did not know what to say. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not say anything more. In fact, even if Mo Yunjue had never mentioned it, they could feel that there was something going on between him and the pavilion master of Shirtian Tower. Otherwise, he would not have been unwilling to go back this time. However, since Mo Yunjue was unwilling to say, they would not ask. Hongzhuang, this time, you have brought your relatives to the upper realm, so you can be completely relieved. Mo Yunjue changed the topic, and his expression was no longer stiff and complicated. Yes, I see that they are living quite freely here, so I am relieved. Chapter 5683. I think father-in-law and mother-in-law would be better off staying here to cultivate. Bewitching smiled, his handsome face becoming even gentler. Although the Bailey family is not bad, the concentration of elemental energy there is not as good as here. What father-in-law and mother-in-law need most now is to raise their levels of cultivation. It would be better for them to stay here for the time being. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. When she saw Mu Lingbing just now, she could acutely sense that the other's aura had increased. It looked like the results of her cultivation in the training room were not bad. Yunjue, now that you're back, we can cultivate together. Bailey Hongzhuang was in high spirits. This time, we've discovered an excellent place to cultivate. I'm sure you'll be able to raise your level faster than the Mercenary Guild. Mo Yunjue raised his eyebrows, a look of contemplation flashing across his eyes, but he quickly understood. The forest world? That's right. But I guarantee that you won't be able to imagine the changes in the forest world. When Xiren kept him in suspense. When we first discovered it, we were all shocked and almost lost our lives. But this time, you've really picked up a bargain. When he said this, Mo Yunjue frowned, his handsome face revealing a hint of nervousness. Could it be that you've encountered a powerful demon beast inside? You won't be able to guess what I've said. You'll know when you go in. When Xiren deliberately mystified him, he took a step forward, leaving Mo Yunjue with his back facing him. If you can guess it, I'll give you my precious bottle of wine. If you can't guess it, how about you tell a joke? When Xiren turned his head, looking at Mo Yunjue with interest. He and Mo Yunjue had known each other for so long, and this guy had always been as cold as ice. Luckily, they were very familiar with each other, so he did not find it strange. But when he thought of asking Mo Yunjue to tell a joke, he felt that this idea was too interesting. However, what answered him was Mo Yunjue's cold gaze. Mo Yunjue didn't say anything. He just looked at Xiren quietly. As he watched, Xiren could not help but shrug his shoulders and admit defeat. Forget it, I know you're not as interesting as me. Why are you still talking when you know? His voice was as cold as ever. Because Mo Yunjue had just returned, no one disturbed him. They let him have a good rest first, and tomorrow they would go to the forest world to train together. After that, Bailey Hongzhuang went to the cultivation room. Sure enough, everyone was gathered here. From the looks of it, he probably hadn't walked out of the cultivation room for a while. After sensing for a while, they were keenly aware of everyone's progress. Mother, you've already broken through to the Starlight Mirror? Bailey Hongzhuang was pleasantly surprised. Previously, he had only sensed that Mu Lingbing's strength had increased. Now that he had carefully sensed it, he realized that she had broken through to the Starlight Mirror. After all, they had only been in the D family for a short period of time. Mu Lingbing smiled and nodded. The elemental energy here is very dense. With the addition of some rare treasures, the speed of improvement is naturally very fast. Bailey Hongzhuang looked carefully. As expected, other than Mu Lingbing, everyone's strength had increased by quite a bit. This cultivation room is really suitable for all of you. Bailey Hongzhuang was delighted. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Chapter 5684. Noticing the satisfaction on everyone's faces, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt relieved. It seemed that while they were cultivating in seclusion, her mother and grandmother had come by many times and had prepared everything very well. Father, the Bailey family's status in the upper realm is not comparable to the D family. Whether it is cultivation resources or the environment, it is slightly inferior. If you feel comfortable here, why don't you stay here for a while? Bailey Hongzhuang's concerned gaze swept over everyone. Although she felt this was the most suitable place, she still had to ask for everyone's opinion. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in dismay, then smiled and nodded. Hongzhuang, you don't have to worry about us. We are very comfortable here. Lan Yunxiao's expression was gentle, his bright black eyes full of affection. He really couldn't help but like such a well-behaved daughter. As a father, he couldn't do anything for his daughter and instead made her worry about him. He also felt guilty. That's right, Hongzhuang, don't worry. Mu Jintz also smiled and said, we usually cultivate and don't have any requirements for the environment, not to mention that everything here has been arranged so well. Noticing everyone's sincere expressions and that there wasn't the slightest bit of reluctance, Bailey Hongzhuang was completely relieved. D. Beichen and I will also be in seclusion for a while. We hope to have a breakthrough in our strength. Perhaps you won't see us for a while. However, if you need anything, you only need to put a note on our door. We will definitely come over as soon as we see it, Bailey Hongzhuang said. No problem, you can all cultivate at ease. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang and D. Beichen weren't in a hurry to return to the abandoned immortal forest. Instead, they accompanied their families for dinner and strolled around Emperor Cloud City for a while before returning. D. Beichen originally wanted to find his father to ask about the crossing immortal domain, but he didn't expect that Diyu Jue was also in seclusion, so he could only return empty-handed. Father has also been trying to break through to a higher realm recently. I hope he can succeed. D. Beichen's eyes were filled with anticipation. Diyu Jue was a very outstanding genius in the upper realm. If it were not for the fact that D. Beichen had put more effort into finding him, he would be even more powerful now. Even so, he was no weaker than the Jun family and the Xiao family. On the contrary, he was even more stunning. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. With father's talent, breaking through is only a matter of time. He will definitely succeed. There was still no news from the Xiao family and the Jun family. The Di family had specially sent cultivators to keep an eye on them. As long as there was any news, they would be sent back as soon as possible. The next day, Mo Yunjue followed everyone to the forest world. He was originally very puzzled about the forest world. He did not know what kind of amazing discovery everyone had made, so much so that Xiren had been so mysterious. However, when he saw Zhongli Mu, his expression changed abruptly. His eyes were filled with astonishment. It wasn't just him. Zhongli Mu was also surprised when he saw Mo Yunjue. Beichen, you brought a new friend? Di Beichen nodded slightly. Yunjue is our good brother. We used to cultivate together, but he was busy a while ago, so he didn't come. Now I'll introduce him to you. Hello, I'm Zhongli Mu. Chapter 5685. I'm Mo Yunjue. Mo Yunjue replied, but he could not help but size up Zhongli Mu. Even though it was just a glance, he could feel that this cultivator, who was much younger than them, was much stronger than him. Even though there were many outstanding cultivators in the upper realm, he had never felt such a huge gap between them. Furthermore, Zhongli Mu was so young. It was hard to imagine how talented he was. There's actually someone in the forest world. What's going on? Mo Yunjue secretly transmitted his voice. This was too shocking for him. He could not figure it out for a moment. Noticing the shock on Mo Yunjue's face, Xiren's smile had a hint of pride. He raised his eyebrows and said smugly, "It's rare to see such an expression on your face. I'll reluctantly tell you." Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at Xiren's smug look. They could not help but laugh. This guy was always thinking about things that others could not think of. After Xiren told them the whole story, Mo Yunjue was still in disbelief. If he had not received confirmation from Bailey Hongzhuang's people, he would have thought that Xiren had made up a story to deceive him. The immortal region actually exists in this world. Could it be that everyone in the immortal region is an immortal? Immortal. This word had been passed down for a long time. Ever since they heard various stories when they were young, they had always yearned for immortals. They did not expect to come to the immortal region. I've asked this question before. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled, then repeated Zhongli Mu's explanation. After hearing all this, Mo Yunjue's eyes were filled with even more shock. This senior is really amazing. In just a few words, he explained everything so simply and casually. Thinking about it carefully, it's true. I was too narrow-minded before. Yunjue, you're too modest. While everyone was talking, Zhongli Mu's figure appeared again. He smiled at everyone and said, "Grandpa, you said that he would teach you sword techniques today. Come with me." Once these words were spoken, everyone's faces lit up with interest. During this period of time, they had been helping the various seniors tidy up. However, it was very rare for him to receive guidance. Who would have thought that Senior Yu would actually say that he would teach them sword techniques today? How could they not be happy? In the upper realm, although they had learned a lot of martial skills, they did not know much about sword techniques. Since Senior Yu had decided to teach them, his actions should not be simple. Yunju, you're so lucky. You can learn the swordsmanship as soon as you come today. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but say with excitement in her eyes. Everyone followed behind Zhongli Mu and quickly rushed forward. Zhongli Mu's speed was as fast as lightning. He shuttled through the forest and disappeared in the blink of an eye. In order to keep up with Zhongli Mu's speed, everyone had to use all their skills. However, the former's movement technique was clearly much better than theirs. Even if they used all their strength, the distance between them was constantly widening. After rushing for hundreds of miles, Zhongli Mu's figure finally stopped. When he turned around, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had yet to arrive. Everyone continued forward. They could only hear the sound of flowing water in front of them, but they did not dare to slack off at all. Chapter 5686. After everyone stopped, their faces were flushed red, and they stood on the spot, gasping for breath. The moist water vapor blew against their faces, bringing a sense of coolness to everyone. Everyone turned around and realized that they had unknowingly arrived at a river. I never thought that there would be such a majestic river in the middle of the abandoned immortal forest. Shangguan Yinying exclaimed. In her line of sight, the river that was a few hundred feet wide seemed to have divided the entire abandoned immortal forest into two. The river flowed rapidly. Even though they were standing on the river bank, they could feel the speed of the current. It was as if everything would be washed away in the blink of an eye. In front of the river was a majestic waterfall. The waterfall was a few hundred feet tall, as if it was a silver screen. The rumbling sound of the waterfall could be heard continuously. The river flowed down majestically, splashing water droplets that were a few hundred feet high, causing the surrounding air to be moist. This waterfall is so majestic. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the huge waterfall in front of her. She looked extremely small in front of the waterfall. Zhongli Mu, did you bring us here because Senior Yu wants to teach us swordsmanship here? Bewitching turned to look at Zhongli Mu. He felt that there must be a reason for bringing them here. Could it be that the swordsmanship had something to do with the waterfall? Zhongli Mu nodded. That's right. Grandpa, you asked me to bring you here. You're all here. Yu Hong's figure appeared in everyone's line of sight. He looked at Di Beichen and the others, and finally his eyes stopped on Mo Yunjue. Why is there another young man today? Yu Hong frowned. Seeing this, Di Beichen stepped forward and clasped his hands together. Senior Yu, this is Mo Yunjue. He is also our best friend. He was out training earlier, so he came late. I hope you don't mind. But I am only going to teach this swordsmanship to the few of you. I am not going to teach it to everyone. Yu Hong lifted his eyes and placed his hands behind his back. He looked arrogant and looked away, as if he was not willing to teach them. Everyone's hearts tightened when they saw this scene. In fact, they had been worried about these problems before, but they thought that the seniors were easy to talk to and might not care about this. But now, it seemed that the situation was not as simple as they thought. Mo Yunjue's expression changed as well. He could feel that this senior before him was extremely powerful. If he could receive his guidance, he would definitely benefit greatly. However, it was clear that his appearance had displeased the senior, and he was unwilling to implicate everyone because of him. In the next moment, Mo Yunjue also took a step forward and said, Senior, this junior's appearance has disturbed you. I hope that a great person like you will not hold a grudge against this lowly person. I will leave now. Everyone couldn't help but feel anxious as they turned to look at Yu Hong. They really didn't want Mo Yunjue to miss out on such an opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully sized up Yu Hong. According to her understanding, this Senior Yu was a sentimental person who was usually quite interesting. This matter should have taken a turn for the better. After pondering for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly came up with a plan. Senior Yu, it's indeed our fault for bringing Yunju here so abruptly. But this time, Yunjue also brought a greeting gift. He knows that you like to eat exotic delicacies, so he specially prepared many special dishes. I hope you will like them. Chapter 5687. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the arrogant Yu Hong's expression suddenly changed. His round eyes widened as he leaned his head forward and asked curiously, Are you telling the truth? Seeing Yu Hong's reaction, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart calmed down. It seemed that her judgment was right. If she wanted to tempt these seniors, she had to use her trump card. Of course. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Di Beichen and the others also smiled, because they knew that the seniors were all foodies, so this time when they went back, they brought a lot of food. Although there were many monsters in the abandoned immortal forest, there were only a few monster groups that were relatively close to each other. There was no doubt that there were fewer of the corresponding species. Emperor Cloud City was different. There were all kinds of food. Last night, they made a special trip to Emperor Cloud City and bought some of the more famous food there, in order to please the seniors. Now, what they needed most was the seniors to guide them in their cultivation. As long as they could please the seniors, it would be easier to achieve their goal. Originally, they wanted to use this trump card at noon, but they didn't expect to use it now. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang took out a plate of desserts from her Qinquan bag and handed it to Yu Hong. Senior Yu, today you have to guide us in swordsmanship, it's really hard for you. Try this dessert first. If you like it, we will definitely prepare more in the future. Yu Hong took the snacks from Bailey Hongzhuang and nodded with satisfaction. I was wondering why Granny Hua liked you so much. You're really likable. Thank you for your praise. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She had a good impression of these seniors. Everyone understood that with the strength of these few seniors, they must be stunning figures without compare. However, these seniors deliberately gave them a chance to coax them. Since this kid is already here, let's stay together. Yu Hong took a bite of the snack and said casually, anyway, even if I don't teach you today, you guys will tell him anyway. It's better to stay and cultivate together. That way, he won't say that this old man is stingy. Hearing this, everyone smiled happily. Thank you, Senior Yu. What I want you to do today is very simple. Cut open the waterfall. Yu Hong pointed at the majestic waterfall in front of him and said calmly. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. When Xiren almost choked on his own saliva. When Xiren looked at the majestic waterfall in front of him and said, Senior Yu, are you talking about this waterfall? Yu Hong nodded. Of course it's this waterfall. But Senior, aren't you going to teach us swordsmanship? Shengguan Ying was a little confused. There didn't seem to be an absolute relationship between the two. I want you to use your swords to cut open this waterfall. When you can cut open this waterfall, it will prove that your swordsmanship has improved. Yu Hong did not say much. He carried the snacks and walked towards the wooden house. Everyone looked at each other as they gazed at Yu Hong's back. It was already extremely difficult for them to stand in the middle of such a waterfall without being washed away, let alone cut it apart with a sword. Chapter 5688. Grandpa Yu has already left. Hurry up and train, don't waste any more time. Zhong Limu laughed. Looking at Zhong Limu's expression, Xiren's lips twitched. Are you sure you're not joking with us? Since Yu Hong had already said so, everyone felt that it was impossible for him to make up something like this just to tease them. Hence, everyone began to move. When Xiren's body moved, directly in front of the waterfall, in the middle of the river. There was no place to stand in the middle of the river, so he could only cover his feet with elemental energy and control his body to stand on the water surface. When Xiren held a sharp sword in his hand and was about to slash forward when a sudden wave came from the rushing river, washing him far away. Ah, when Xiren shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of the rushing river. When Xiren only managed to climb out of the river when he reached the downstream. Seeing this scene, everyone looked at each other in dismay. In front of such a terrifying nature, their strength paled in comparison. Most importantly, standing on the water surface was already unstable, and they would face the pressure of the rushing river at any time. It was simply too difficult to do this. However, none of them chose to give up. One by one, they rushed to the middle of the river and began to try. However, although it was beautiful to imagine, it was extremely difficult to put it into practice. If they were not careful, they would follow in Xiren's footsteps. Ah, ouch! Voices rang out one after another. In a short period of time, everyone's clothes were drenched in sweat. When Xiren walked out of the river again, he could not help but look at Zhong Limu and ask, Are you sure Senior Yu is not joking with us? Zhong Limu shook his head, Of course not. I used to train like this too. His words immediately attracted everyone's attention. Everyone looked at Zhong Limu curiously. You used to train like this too? Then did you succeed? Of course. Zhong Limu nodded matter-of-factly, but it was Grandpa who allowed me to train here. At that time, he told me to train here non-stop. If I did not succeed, I was not allowed to learn anything else. When I first started, I was like all of you. I was often washed downstream by the rushing river. However, after a long time, I gained some experience and slowly got better. So, you can cut this waterfall in half? Everyone's eyes lit up. The waterfall in front of them was so shocking. Even if they used all their skills, they could only form a crack that was 100 meters long on the waterfall, which would disappear very quickly. If they wanted to cut the entire waterfall in two, the difference was too great. Sure. Zhong Limu took a step forward. Since you don't believe me, I'll show you. Seeing this, everyone walked to the riverbank and looked at Zhong Li Mu expectantly. Zhong Li Mu's figure flashed and landed in the middle of the riverbank. He ignored the rushing water as his gaze landed on the magnificent waterfall in front of him. In the next moment, he raised the sharp sword in his hand. The origin energy in his body gushed out, and a terrifying aura instantly expanded. Then he slashed forward with his sword. It was an indomitable sword, as if it was the sharpest weapon in the world. It cut through the air, space, and everything. Chapter 5689. At this moment, no one was in the mood to pay attention to the pain because the scene before their eyes was simply too shocking. The mighty waterfall that seemed capable of washing away everything was suddenly split into two distinct waterfalls by a beam of golden sword chi. This ray of sword energy was incomparably sharp. Not only did it cut the waterfall in half, it also cut through space itself. Most importantly, even though Zhong Li Mu had already put away his sword, the waterfall did not immediately close up. Instead, it paused for a few seconds before merging back together. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other, their faces filled with amazement. Even though it was only a few seconds, in reality, against a waterfall like this, it was extremely difficult to stay even a second longer. Previously, when they tried to cut through the waterfall, they only managed to create a small crack. In the blink of an eye, the crack disappeared as if it was never there. In comparison, the difference was obvious. Xiren stared blankly at the scene before him. He no longer thought that Senior Yu was joking with them. If they could really learn this move, then it would be incredible. At least, based on the people they had met so far, there were not many who could withstand this move. Zhong Li Mu, this move of yours is too powerful. Shangguan Ying could not help but exclaim. She clasped her hands in front of her chest, and her delicate face was full of admiration. Zhong Li Mu scratched the back of his head embarrassedly. His young and inexperienced face was filled with shyness. This move of mine is actually nothing. You guys haven't seen Grandpa Yu's move. It's much stronger than mine. Regarding this, no one doubted it. Even though Grandpa Yu had never made a move and looked like an ordinary old man, they all knew very well that once this old man made a move, it would be earth-shattering. Zhong Li Mu, now we are all confident. Bewitching smiled faintly. His deep and charming eyes were full of confidence. As long as there was something to gain, no matter how difficult the process was, they could persevere. Not only Bewitching, but everyone else's heart was ignited with hope. As long as they could learn this move, their fighting abilities would greatly increase. For a moment, no one doubted this sword training method anymore. One by one, they rushed to the center of the river and began to practice facing the waterfall. Facing this river that was hundreds of meters wide, even if everyone stood side by side in the middle of the river, they still seemed extremely small. As he swung his sword again and again, his attribute power continued to surge out and infuse into the sword. However, compared to the river, the sword chi that he swung out was undoubtedly extremely small. The river was turbulent, and waves came one after another. Just maintaining balance and standing on the surface of the river was already difficult enough, let alone swinging a sword. The moment he swung his sword, balance was the most difficult to grasp. If he was not careful, he would be swept away by the waves. A familiar voice rang out, but it was drowned out by the river in an instant. Plop, plop. The sound of things falling into the water continued to ring out. Even under the sun, everyone's clothes were still wet. After failing again and again, the crowd came up from the bottom of the river again and again. Unlike their previous helplessness, no matter how many times they failed, the faith in their eyes never wavered. Again and again, he tried again and again, trying again and again. Chapter 5690. Although the sword chi of the people in front of him could not be compared to his own, he could tell from the burning flames in their eyes that they were determined and serious. His grandfather had said that Beichin and the others were talented in cultivation, but their environment was different from his. Their cultivation resources were not as good as his, so their strength was not as good as his. He had been cultivating with his grandfather since he was young. Granny Hua would often refine pills for him, and he had almost never stopped taking medicinal baths. If Beichin and the others were in such an environment, their strength would probably not be weaker than his. When Ziren walked up from the bottom of the river again, his steps were no longer as steady and fast as before. His delicate and elegant face showed unconcealable tiredness, and he could not help but pant as he walked, and he was holding a fish in his hand. When I fell down just now, I hit a fish and it seemed to have fainted. I think we can make a fish dish tonight. Ziren raised the fish in his hand, and a bright smile appeared on his face again. After seeing Ziren's funny look, the others, who were also tired, could not help but chuckle. Good idea. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, and a playful and mischievous smile appeared on her exquisite face. She was like a forest elf, extremely cute. Ziren, how big is your body to be able to knock this fish out? Why didn't I do the same? Shangguan Yingying scolded with a smile, but the smile in her eyes could not be stopped. I think this fish must have seen me working too hard, so it fainted on purpose. Reward me well. Ziren said proudly. Everyone looked at each other. This guy was as thick-skinned as ever. Why don't we catch a fish if one of us falls down? How about it? Ziren looked interested. Although this river is wide and rapid, the water is clear. The fish should taste very delicious. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the fish in Ziren's hand. This fish was obviously different from the fish they usually saw. Its body was more beautiful, and its scales reflected a dazzling light under the sun. With just a glance, she could tell that the fish must be more chewy than usual. The river here is rapid. Ordinary fish cannot survive here. This fish is indeed different. I believe it will taste good. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Ziren's face also showed interest. Really? Of course. If you don't believe me, ask Yingying. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. I believe you. Ziren's eyebrows raised and smiled. He raised the fish in his hand. Beichin looked at the interested Ziren and shook his head helplessly. This guy hasn't changed at all after so many years. Hearing you say that, you seem to have seen it many times? Mo Yunjue said. I always felt that with my talent and cultivation, it should be more than that. Now I have finally found the reason. Beichin sighed. As soon as these words came out, everyone turned their heads and looked at Beichin doubtfully. What reason? In the past, when I was cultivating, this guy would always interrupt and drag me to do other things. This was very common. Beichin looked at Ziren with a smile, looking like he was going to settle scores. Chapter 5691. Night slowly fell, and the abandoned immortal forest was shrouded in darkness. The moonlight reflected off the surface of the river. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest tried again and again, as if they did not feel the passage of time. It's getting late, let's go back. Zhongli Mu stood up and reminded everyone who was still cultivating. However, everyone seemed to be numb to it, and they continued to practice like machines. They did not know when they would be able to master this move, but they knew that Zhongli Mu had tried millions of times before he succeeded. No matter what kind of martial skill it was, it would definitely become a powerful killing weapon after practicing it millions of times. Granny and the rest should be hungry. Zhongli Mu said again. The weather had been getting colder recently, and the sky was getting dark earlier. However, it was time to go back. As soon as these words came out, everyone who was still immersed in cultivation immediately came back to their senses. Bailey Hongzhuang stopped what she was doing and quickly jumped onto the shore. Looking at the sky, she was shocked. I didn't expect it to be so late. You're all so focused. Zhongli Mu smiled. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest so serious, he could not help but think of himself when he was young. In the beginning, he was not so serious. On the contrary, he would often slack off. However, his grandfather would always chase after him with a wooden stick, urging him every day. Gradually, it became a habit for him. In comparison, he was not serious at all. Let's go back quickly, Senior and the rest are hungry. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at everyone. It's really late today. Everyone nodded. They had agreed that they would be in charge of cooking, and the senior would guide them in their cultivation. Now that the senior had started to guide them, they could not forget their duties. At the same time, Yu Hong and Hua Shukong were sitting outside the house, looking at the stars in the sky with a relaxed expression. Old Yu, did you teach them swordsmanship today? Hua looked at Yu Hong casually and asked. These little guys have been cooking for us for so many days, it's time for them to start cultivating. Yu Hong picked up a cup of tea from the side and took a sip before continuing. However, they brought another little fellow today. They said that he's their good brother. Hua Shukong glanced at Yu Hong and looked away. I can tell from your expression that you've been bribed. This newcomer is not bad. He even brought a greeting gift. If that's the case, doesn't that mean you'll have to teach anyone in the future? Hua Hua's eyes turned serious. Yu Hong waved his hand. Of course not. I only agreed because I'm very satisfied with these little fellows. I'll only do this once, and there won't be a next time. Humph, Hua Hua snorted coldly. What delicious food did this little guy use to bribe you? Then shouldn't we wait for them to come back? Yu Hong looked away guiltily. Old man Yu, I've known you for so many years, how could I not know what kind of person you are? Sneered, I smelled the snacks on you as soon as you came back. The older you get, the more you like to eat alone. Look at what you're saying. I just ate a little while I was at it. When Zhongli Xiaoran walked over, he saw the three old fellows sitting in the courtyard and frowned slightly. And the rest aren't back yet? Chapter 5692. Hearing that, Zhongli Xiaoran did not ask any more questions. Instead, he found a seat and sat down. The smell. Old Lady Hua, you've prepared a medicinal bath? Your nose is quite sharp. Zhongli Xiaoran's eyes flashed with surprise. From the thickness of the medicinal smell, you've prepared quite a bit. You can't be biased, right? Hua's face was calm. I'm a fair person, unlike a certain fellow who likes to eat alone. Cough cough. Knowing that Hua was talking about him, Yu Hong coughed dryly. Since he was already feeling guilty, he could only remain silent. Why are you few old fellows so free? Zhongli Xiaoran did not understand. Don't you usually dislike trouble? He had known these few old fellows for quite some time. Naturally, he knew their personalities. Thinking back to when he asked these three fellows to teach Mu some skills, they were still hesitant. Although they agreed in the end, he still had to put in a lot of effort. After that, some cultivators from the abandoned immortal forest came to ask for guidance. However, these few fellows had no intention of teaching them at all. Everyone returned empty-handed. This time, Mu got to know these few young people. Although he agreed to cultivate with Mu, he did not have any intention of teaching them. He knew that these few young people were not from the immortal domain. It should be a coincidence that they came here. However, he did not know what treasure they used to come here. However, these few old fellows were not normal. This made him very surprised. Indeed, we don't like trouble. However, these few fellows are not troublesome either. Hua Shukong slowly said, these few fellows' eyes are very pure. Perhaps they've been in the abandoned immortal forest for too long and found it boring. Isn't it good to have a few young people to add some life? Indeed, eating tasteless food all day long. My mouth is so bland. Yu Hong sighed, it's so good now. Most importantly, it's pleasing to the eyes. Hua's face was full of satisfaction. Look at how good these few fellows are. It's much better than looking at your faces all day long. Old Lady Hua, you can praise others if you want. Why do you have to bring me into it? Yu Hong was unhappy. When I was young, I also charmed thousands of girls. TSK, forget it. Zhongli Xiaoran looked at the three old men in front of him. He didn't know if the situation was as simple as they said. He was quite fond of these young people. However, to be able to make these three old fellows act out of character, it could be considered their ability. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned, they saw the four seniors waiting for them in the courtyard. They immediately felt even more guilty. Senior, we're sorry. We came back late. Everyone hurriedly apologized. Let's go prepare dinner. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Ying quickly walked to the kitchen. When Xiren raised the bamboo basket in his hand and said with a smile, we caught a lot of fresh fish today. The four seniors looked at everyone and didn't say anything. However, when their gazes landed on Mo Yunjue, They couldn't help but size him up a little more. This was the first time they had seen this young man. Chapter 5693. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others breathed a sigh of relief when they came to the kitchen. They had been worried that they would be scolded for coming back late. Now they were the ones asking for help. Even if the seniors seemed to be easy to get along with, if they were slightly dissatisfied, they would have no chance at all. It seems that the 4 seniors are in a good mood. They didn't complain about us coming back late. Shangguan Yingying breathed a sigh of relief. We have to cook a few dishes tonight. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. The fish Xiren caught looks good. Of course. The fish I caught are of different species. But I'll have to rely on your skills to cook. Xiren looked proud. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying were very fast, and with the help of others, their speed was even faster. Plate after plate of dishes were served. In addition to some local specialties they bought from the Emperor Cloud City, a table of dishes was soon ready. After preparing some things, Bailey Hongzhuang sat down weakly. After practicing for the whole day, her right hand was a little numb from swinging the sword. Coupled with the washing of the river, her right hand was a little tired. Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about whether or not she should use silver needles to help everyone relieve the sore and swollen feeling. Only then could they continue to practice tomorrow in a good state. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to bear it for a few days. However, at this moment, the figure of Hua Hua appeared in front of everyone. You must be hungry too, right? Come and eat with us. Everyone smiled and waved their hands. Granny Hua, we're not hungry. Don't say that. Come quickly. Otherwise, we'll be the ones who mistreat you. Granny Hua smiled. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other, but still followed behind Granny Hua. Yu Hong looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others who were slightly restrained. He smiled and waved his hand. Little guys, just treat us as your elders. Don't be shy. Thank you, senior. Hu Shukong smiled. How are the results of your practice today? Everyone looked at each other, looking a little embarrassed. We didn't have any results today. Old man Hua, aren't you talking nonsense? Yu Hong waved his hand. It's impossible to master it in a day or two. You can only succeed if you practice day and night. Senior Yu, we will definitely work hard in our cultivation. Yu Hong nodded slightly. I know that all of you have been training very hard, so Granny Hua has prepared a gift for all of you. Granny Hua. Everyone was surprised. If you're done eating, go to the house over there. I've prepared a medicinal bath for you. After a day of high-intensity cultivation, soak in the medicinal bath and cultivate. Your cultivation speed will greatly increase. Everyone's eyes lit up. Previously, they had heard from Zhong Li Mu that he would often soak in medicinal baths after cultivating. They did not expect that they would have the opportunity to do so. Thank you, Grandma Hua. Everyone bowed, expressing their gratitude with words and expressions. Although he hadn't soaked in it before, he could guess that the ingredients used for this medicinal bath weren't simple. When everyone saw the bathtubs in front of them, they were touched. The material of the bathtub looked very new. Obviously, it was specially prepared for them in the past 2 days. Chapter 5694. Just by smelling the scent of the medicinal bath, she knew that there were many precious spiritual herbs here. She could recognize most of them, but there were also some that she did not know about. It was not because she could not recognize them, but because she had never come into contact with them before. In the abandoned immortal forest, she found some spiritual herbs that she did not recognize. It was clear that there were many differences between the immortal region and the upper realm. Not only that, some of the rarer herbs in the upper realm could be found here. If her judgment was correct, she lived in the upper realm 1,000 years ago. She had never come into contact with the immortal region. Therefore, if she came to the immortal region in the future, she would have to read more books to understand the effects of the spiritual herbs in the immortal region. Let's go in quickly. This medicinal bath is very beneficial to our bodies. Bailey Hongzhuang said. Shangguan Yingying and Linger did not delay, and hurriedly entered the tub. A wave of warmth surrounded everyone, and their tired bodies immediately relaxed. The medicinal power entered their bodies through their pores, quietly improving their bodies. Granny Hua must have spent a lot of effort to prepare this medicinal bath. Shengguan Ying looked at the brown medicinal water. She could feel that after the medicinal power entered her body seemed to have become stronger. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Just preparing these herbs took a lot of effort, and also mixing them together. As she said that, a smile bloomed on her face. Granny Hua is really good. At that moment, the three of them felt that they were very lucky to have met a few kind seniors to guide them in their cultivation after coming to the abandoned immortal forest. In another room, Di Beichen, Wen Ziren, Mo Yunjue, and Bai Li Yanche were also soaking in the medicinal bath. Even though the four of them did not know much about medicine, they could feel the uniqueness of this medicinal bath. If we cultivate at such a high intensity every day, coupled with the medicinal power of this medicinal bath, I'm afraid our strength will increase very quickly. Granny Hua is really a good person. We barely do anything every day, and she actually helps us like this. Ziren's heart was filled with warmth, and he was determined to treat Granny Hua well. I didn't expect to meet such a kind-hearted old man in the immortal realms. How rare, your luck is really good. Mo Yunjue, who had always been a man of few words, also spoke up. Usually, the people he met would not get up early if there was no benefit to be gained. It was rare to see someone who was willing to help others like this. Xiao Xuanzi looked at Bai Li Yanche, who was soaking in the medicinal bath with a look of enjoyment, and it could not help but feel envious. Yanche, doesn't this feel great? Bai Li Yanche opened his eyes and raised his eyebrows. Of course. Do you want to try? Xiao Xuanzi nodded. But it's inconvenient for you to be covered in hair. I think we should forget about it. Bai Li Yanche chuckled. Why don't you transform into a human too? You've already succeeded anyway. That's right. Now that things have come to this, you don't have to be so secretive. We're all men, what are you afraid of? Ziren also spoke up. Until now, Xiao Xuanzi had not transformed into a human in front of them, and they could not help but be curious. Xiao Xuanzi, this is a good opportunity. Isn't it great to cultivate with us every day? Di Beichen said. Chapter 5695. Seeing Xiao Xuanzi's firm refusal, everyone looked at each other and felt a little helpless. In my opinion, Xiao Xuanzi is too fat. He doesn't even dare to let us see his real face. When Ziren couldn't help but laugh. Speaking of which, we really don't have any fatties in our team. Xiao Xuanzi, it's not a bad idea for you to join us and enrich our team. I don't want to. Xiao Xuanzi snorted, walked to the side and sat down. Mo Yunjue glanced at Ziren and said, Ziren, you're thinking that if Xiao Xuanzi joins us, then you'll have someone to scapegoat for you, right? As soon as he said that, Di Beichen and Bai Li Yanche also reacted. Recalling Yu Hong's look of disdain when he talked about Ziren, after thinking about it carefully, it was indeed possible. Ahem. Being poked at the key point, Ziren glanced around, wanting to change the topic, but found that the three people's eyes were still on him. Obviously, he couldn't avoid it, so he could only helplessly say, Who asked you guys to look so devilish? In the past, at least I had Ling Xiao as my companion, but now, Ling Xiao isn't here, I'm the only one left. Can't you guys understand me? Do you think I'm easy? Hearing Ziren's sorrowful question, the three people's lips twitched slightly. Why are you guys looking at me like that? Seeing the three people looking at him strangely, Ziren couldn't help but ask. Ha! The three people laughed. Bai Li Yanche even held his stomach, tears coming out of the corner of his eyes. Ziren, you're a man, we didn't notice that you care so much about this problem. I don't want to care. Ziren rolled his eyes. Look at Granny Hua and the others, this is an era where looks matter, sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang sat in the bathtub, closed her eyes and began to cultivate the demon summoning scripture. The rich vitality in the air was mixed with the pure medicinal power of the medicinal bath as she breathed in and out. It merged into her body and entered her limbs and bones. It flowed along her meridians and finally merged into her dantian. Linger and Shangguan Ying were also focused on cultivating, unwilling to waste any time. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes when the first rays of the morning sun shone into the room. Feeling that the water in the bathtub was still warm, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. It's really interesting that the water temperature can be maintained like this. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, Shangguan Ying and Linger also exited their cultivation state. They saw that the originally rich color of the potion had gradually become transparent. It was obvious that the potion had been absorbed by their bodies. Other than that, some stains could be vaguely seen, which were discharged from their bodies. These stains are somewhat similar to the stains we get when we cleanse our marrow and meridians. Could it be that this medicinal bath has such an effect? Shangguan Ying said in surprise. Marrow and meridians cleansing could improve a cultivator's physique, making it more suitable for cultivation. However, after a cultivator had undergone the first cleansing, it would be extremely difficult for them to achieve a similar effect again. Now, they had only soaked in the medicinal bath once and it had such an effect. It was really a surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the water in the bathtub, her clear eyes filled with surprise and surprise. That's right, it does have such an effect. Chapter 5696. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I had a similar opportunity before, so there were fewer impurities. Back then, in Bai Yunjiao's historical remains, she soaked in the pool and her body improved. Although these differences weren't obvious, one could feel the difference when cultivating. This was due to the fact that not many impurities were discharged. However, just being able to do this was already very shocking. I wonder what ingredients Granny Hua added. Bailey Hongzhuang was amazed. She was sure that Granny Hua's medical skills were amazing. Even though the immortal region had more spiritual herbs than the upper realm, she believed that not everyone could create such a medicinal bath. Zhongli Mu had soaked in this medicinal bath since he was young, so the impurities in his body must have been expelled. It was no wonder that his cultivation talent was so shocking. If she was able to learn the prescription and bring back the spiritual grasses from the abandoned immortal forest, she would be able to hand them over to the elders. Presumably, the elders' strength would also increase. However, although Granny Hua was easy to get along with, she might not be willing to teach this method to others. Furthermore, Granny Hua had only agreed to guide them in their cultivation. Hongzhuang, what are you thinking about? Shangguan Ying waved her hand in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's face when she saw that she was suddenly lost in thought. Bailey Hongzhuang returned to her senses and shook her head with a smile. Nothing, let's go out. Prepare a simple breakfast. We should go out and cultivate. Linger was not good at cooking, but she had learned a little from following Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Ying. At least, the task of preparing the side dishes was now in her hands. With a wave of her hand, the ingredients were cleanly processed. When Bewitching and the rest came out, they realized that breakfast was already prepared. Everyone immediately walked towards the waterfall. As they walked, they munched on their dry rations. When they arrived, everyone could immediately enter cultivation mode. The morning air was slightly chilly. The cold wind blew on everyone's bodies, making their clothes seem slightly thin. However, everyone's eyes were burning with the flames of war, as if they couldn't feel the cold at all. In the next moment, everyone's figures flashed and arrived on the surface of the river. Originally, just standing here was already very difficult. Every wave that came was a test for them. It wasn't until last night that everyone managed to hold on for a little longer. However, after a night of rest, there seemed to be a sense of unfamiliarity. Plop, plop. A loud splash was heard, and everyone was accidentally washed downstream again. The river water was bone-chillingly cold, and even his body stiffened a little. Once again, he would return and join the group practicing his swordsmanship, and the cycle would repeat. After falling into the water 3 times in a row, everyone finally regained the feeling they had last night and stood a little more firmly. Of course, he would still accidentally fall into the water from time to time, but the frequency was undoubtedly lower than yesterday. When Granny Hua and the rest woke up, they found that breakfast was already prepared, and Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were nowhere to be seen. These little guys are really serious about cultivation. They are quite similar to me in the past. Huo Shukong chuckled, and there was a trace of satisfaction in his voice. Chapter 5697. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been staying in the wooden house. Because Yu Hong had not yet taught them how to cultivate, they spent most of their time here. They would only follow him out to cultivate if he came. He didn't expect them to leave first today. Of course, you're the laziest one. Granny Hua smiled. Yu Hong nodded. I remember was always lazy when he was cultivating. It was Zhong Li Kong who chased after him with a wooden stick every day that forced him to cultivate. Isn't that so? If had been so diligent, his cultivation would be much higher now. Hu Shukong laughed. Zhong Li Mu's face turned red when he heard everyone's words. He hurriedly said, I know. I'll go cultivate now. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhong Li Mu ran away like a wisp of smoke. If he continued to stay here, he was afraid that even his grandfather would scold him. Everyone laughed even more when they saw Zhong Li Mu run faster than a rabbit. Is simple and honest. He just said a few words and ran away. Zhong Li Xiao shook his head. Looks like doesn't need to be supervised with these little fellows here. Is usually with us old fellows and rarely sees people of the same generation. That's why he doesn't feel nervous. Now that he knows how people of the same generation cultivate, he knows what's going on. This is a good thing. Hu Shukong smiled. I think you're here to freeload. These little fellows have already prepared breakfast before they left. When Zhong Li Mu arrived at the waterfall, he discovered that everyone was there. From the looks of it, everyone had been cultivating here for quite some time. I didn't expect you to come so early. When I went to Granny Hua's place to look for you, you weren't there. Hearing Zhong Li Mu's familiar voice, everyone turned around and smiled. You're here. We thought that you usually wake up a little late, so we didn't disturb you. Zhong Li Mu curled his lips. I woke up late today and got scolded by my grandfather. Looks like I'll have to wake up early tomorrow. You'll have to call me. Everyone was slightly taken aback. They did not expect such a situation to occur. They all nodded and said, we will definitely call you in the future. Seeing this, Zhong Li Mu smiled and said, then all of you should stay here and cultivate properly. If you want to stand firmly on the surface of the river, you have to control your elemental energy to the smallest detail. This doesn't have much to do with strength. All you need to do is train more. I'm going to cultivate above the waterfall. Understood. Everyone nodded. In fact, they had also realized this during the day of cultivation. The reason why they fell into the river was because they did not have enough control over their essence energy, so they could not stand steadily on the surface of the river. Once the waves hit, the water surface would become different. He had to control it immediately, or he wouldn't be able to stand firm. Normally, everyone would pay attention to improving their control over their origin energy when they were cultivating. However, the requirements at that time were not high, so it did not appear to be difficult. But now that the requirements were higher, his control paled in comparison. Zhong Li Mu, why are you training at the waterfall? Shengguan Yingying asked. Grandpa said that my movement technique is not good enough. If I follow the waterfall upstream and succeed, my movement technique will improve greatly. Chapter 5698. Even though they were a certain distance away from the waterfall, they could still feel the force of the water rushing down. Looking at the height of the waterfall, wasn't it too difficult to walk up directly? For a moment, the corners of everyone's lips twitched slightly. This kind of cultivation method was really an eye-opener for them. I finally understand why Zhong Li Mu's strength is so terrifying despite being younger than us. Xiren sighed. His cultivation method is really too terrifying. Bewitching nodded slightly. Although this cultivation method is very simple, it's much more difficult than our usual cultivation. Whether it was for them to practice their swordsmanship here or for Zhong Li Mu to practice his movement technique, it was very simple to do, but it was very difficult to do. However, it could be seen from Zhong Li Mu that once it was done, it would definitely not only improve in one aspect. Until now, I can only walk halfway up the waterfall before I'll be washed down by the water. However, I believe that as long as I practice for a while more, I'll succeed. I'll go first. Zhong Li Mu waved his hand. His youthful face was filled with endless youth under the sunlight, and his bright and sunny appearance gave everyone more motivation. Come, Let's continue to practice and strive to succeed as soon as possible. On this day, when Xiren used his fishing techniques to catch a lot of fish. Naturally, he couldn't avoid making fish for dinner. However, he changed the cooking method today and it tasted very good. In the following days, everyone was busy with their cultivation. When they returned, Granny Hua would prepare a medicinal bath for them. Regarding this, everyone expressed their gratitude, and Granny Hua's face was full of kindness. Cultivating in this medicinal bath allowed everyone's cultivation to increase extremely quickly. Furthermore, the origin energy here was much denser and purer than the upper realm. Gradually, everyone was able to stand on the surface of the river without worrying about falling down. This discovery made everyone happy. Although their sword aura didn't improve much, being able to stand here was already a huge improvement. Usually, because they would always fall into the river and walk back from downstream, most of their time was spent on this. Now, everyone could wholeheartedly practice their swordsmanship. Swinging the sword continuously. It was just a simple movement, but everyone made some discoveries in the process of swinging the sword continuously. As their control of origin energy increased, they also discovered a sharp difference when swinging the sword. For example, how to use origin energy to produce a greater effect with the same amount of origin energy. Perhaps they didn't pay too much attention to this point on normal days. When releasing a martial skill, they paid more attention to the might of the martial skill. But now, they realized that controlling origin power was also a profound knowledge. The more origin energy they conserved, the longer their battle power, and if they could accurately control every bit of origin energy without wasting it, it meant that their battle power. Zhongli Mu is right. In the process of cultivation, other than the improvement of sword qi, there are many other aspects that are quietly improving. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes fell on the figure on top of the waterfall. This time, they had seen how serious and terrifying Zhongli Mu's cultivation was. Previously, they were often swept away by the river, but Zhongli Mu was completely submerged by the river. Chapter 5699. Under the majestic waterfall, Zhongli Mu's figure seemed extremely small. The huge waves crashed onto his body and directly pushed him to the bottom of the river. However, Zhongli Mu was also very resilient and quickly made a comeback. Therefore, when everyone practiced swinging their swords, they could only watch as Zhongli Mu continuously tried and failed. Defeated and defeated, defeated and still fighting. When Xiren was curious about how difficult Zhongli Mu's move was, so he personally gave it a try. The result was undoubtedly heartbreaking. Before he could even take a few steps forward, he was already submerged by the waterfall. He had to drink a few mouthfuls of water before he could emerge. Bewitching, Mo Yunjue and Bai Lianche also gave it a try. Their cultivation levels were slightly higher than Xiren's, but they only managed to take a few more steps forward. In front of the waterfall, they were extremely small. The difficulty level increased with every step forward. Based on their current situation, it was undoubtedly very far for them to reach Zhongli Mu's current level. This gap is really too big. Xiren sighed. We still have a lot of training to do. After Mo Yunjue experienced this gap, the way he looked at Zhongli Mu also changed. If Zhongli Mu goes to the upper realm, I'm afraid no one will be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Bewitching nodded and looked at the young man in the beast robe. Such a genius was really outstanding. I used to think that there were too many outstanding geniuses in the upper realm. But in front of Zhongli Mu, those geniuses are all overshadowed. There are also many geniuses in the upper realm. Everyone is working hard to cultivate. While we've been here, I think Jun Lingshuan and Xiao Sou are also working hard to cultivate. Mo Yunjue's eyes darkened. Although he felt that Mu Jin's character was not very good, he could see that this guy was also tenacious when he was in the Immortal Cloud's secret realm. This time, after being defeated by Hong Zhuang, the possibility of him giving up was not very high. Instead, it was more likely that he would work hard. Aren't we also working hard to cultivate? Bewitching smiled faintly, but a cold light flashed in his eyes. The next time we meet we'll see. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. Other than when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying, Everyone else's strength stopped at Nebula Stage 9. According to Granny Hua, there was no need to rush to break through at this time. The most important thing was to accumulate. Among them, the first to sense the possibility of a breakthrough was by Li Yanche. Originally, his strength was slightly weaker than Ling, but now they were on par. Because of the existence of the seal, Ling found it even more difficult to break through. After Bai Li Yanche sensed the opportunity to break through, he had been suppressing it. He had no intention of breaking through. It will be interesting if we break through at the same time, Bai Li Yanche said with a smile. Let's take advantage of this opportunity. Wait for me and Ingi. Xiren's face was filled with joy. Normally your breakthroughs are too fast. Ying and I can't catch up to you. Now, this is a good opportunity. I don't think so. Bewitching raised his eyebrows. Bewitching, you'll get beaten up like this. Xiren threatened. With your strength? Forget I said that. Chapter 5700. Normally, everyone would spend most of their time cultivating on the surface of the river, and when it was time to eat, the men would go around hunting demonic beasts. After a while, they naturally became familiar with each other. On this day, when Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were cultivating, Xiao Xuanzi suddenly looked ahead with excitement. Wow, it's so beautiful. The sudden voice attracted everyone's attention. Everyone turned their heads and looked in the direction Xiao Xuanzi was looking at. They didn't know what this guy was talking about. However, when they saw the figure in front of them, they were all stunned. A imperial wind horse elephant appeared in everyone's line of sight. Its rumbling sound revealed its weight. Its body was huge, but its lines were very beautiful. The imperial wind horse elephant is the descendant of a hippopotamus and an elephant. It's very good at speed and is a very powerful existence among the demonic beasts. Zhong Limu noticed Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' curious looks and immediately explained with a smile. This guy is very good at speed? Mo Yunjue was a little surprised. This guy in front of him was so huge, it didn't look like it was strong and healthy. Zhong Limu nodded slightly. You can't judge a book by its cover. It's the same for beasts. Little Blossom, you're here. Zhong Limu waved his hand at the imperial wind horse elephant. He was very familiar with it. The imperial wind horse elephant slowly walked to Zhong Limu's side and rubbed against him. It was very friendly. However, when it looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, it was undoubtedly a little more distant. Little Blossom? Shengguan Yingying's lips twitched. This imperial wind horse elephant looked so domineering. Why did it have such an unsuitable name? Without waiting for Zhong Limu's explanation, Xiao Xuanzi said with a silly smile, It's originally as beautiful as a flower. Everyone couldn't help but shiver. Looking at Xiao Xuanzi's love-struck expression, they suddenly felt that their aesthetic standards were a little different from Xiao Xuanzi's. Previously, I thought that Xiao Xuanzi's aesthetic standards were quite normal. Could it be that after he gained weight, his aesthetic standards also changed? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bewitching thoughtfully. Bewitching's eyes were also filled with doubt. He shook his head and said, I don't know about that. Maybe the demonic beast's sense of beauty is different from ours? In my opinion, little Xuanzi must have been too empty and lonely recently, so he's thinking of love. Xiren's eyes lit up, and he looked like he had found the truth. Hearing Xiren's words, everyone looked at each other. Perhaps there was such a possibility. Zhong Limu, on the other hand, did not notice anything amiss as he explained to everyone, You all know that Granny Hua's name is Hua Hua, right? Back then, when Little Blossom was injured, it was Granny Hua who treated him. From then on, Little Flower and us got to know each other. Sometimes, when we found some treasures, we would give them to Granny Flower. However, Granny Hua did not accept it as a contract beast, but their relationship was still very good. Granny Hua's name is Hua Hua, so she named him Little Flower. Everyone finally understood. Actually, when they knew Granny Hua's name, they were also a little shocked. After all, this name was really too simple. Now, it seemed that Granny Hua had inherited her parents' tradition. Naming was as simple as always. Master, why do I feel that Granny Hua's naming skills are comparable to yours? Chapter 5701. Ugh, Bailey Hongzhuang face-bombed. When she first heard the name Little Blossom, she felt helpless. However, after hearing Xiao Hei's words, it seemed that her naming skills were on the same level as Grandma Flowers. At least mine is more suitable for your situation. Bailey Hongzhuang defended herself. Just take it as it is. Xiao Hei spread her hands. She looked like she could say whatever she wanted. Little Blossom, they are my new friends. You haven't been here for a while, so you don't know them. They are now staying at Grandma Flower's house. You will see them often in the future. Let me introduce them to you. Zhong Limu introduced Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to Little Blossom. Only then did the vigilance in Little Blossom's eyes disappear. There was a hint of familiarity. However, facing Xiao Xuanzi's gaze, its gaze changed. Why is this guy looking at me so strangely? So pretty. Xiao Xuanzi looked at Little Blossom with infatuation. When Zhong Limu introduced himself, he took a step forward. Beautiful beast, I am Xiao Xuanzi. Little Blossom looked at Xiao Xuanzi strangely, but didn't say anything. Seeing this, Xiao Xuanzi went to Little Blossom's side. Little Blossom, your name is so nice. I just came to the abandoned immortal forest not long ago. They are all cultivating. It's so boring. Why don't you bring me around? Hose before brothers, Bewitching sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Looking at Xiao Xuanzi's flattering face, she said, Bewitching, Xiao Xuanzi is quite good at chasing after beasts. Did he learn it from you? That's not it. Bewitching shook his head. If you want to talk about spoiling your wife, he should have learned it from me. When I chased after you, Xiao Xuanzi wasn't even born yet. Tisk tiskei. Shengguan Ying shrugged. That's too mushy. I can't take it anymore. Let's go cultivate first. I'm afraid Little Xuanzi is gifted in this aspect. When Xiren thought of Little Xuanzi's previous performance and made a judgment. Zhong Limu also noticed that Little Xuanzi was particularly interested in Little Flower. However, he felt that Little Xuanzi wouldn't have much of a chance because Little Flower's standards were very high. As expected, Little Blossom, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. I'm not free. It was just two simple words, but Xiao Xuanzi's flattering smile immediately froze. Zhong Limu, I'll be leaving first. After Little Flower said that, he turned and walked in another direction. When his huge body walked, there was a rumbling sound again. Xiao Xuanzi, I think you should just forget about it. Bewitching muttered and was about to pull Xiao Xuanzi to cultivate together. However, when they turned around, everyone realized that Little Xuanzi had already disappeared. They could vaguely hear Xiao Xuanzi's voice. It's okay if you're not free. I'll go with you wherever you want to go. I'm free anyway. Everyone stood stiffly on the spot. They only saw an imperial wind horse elephant quickly moving forward with a mystical fire demonic rock following closely beside it. The imperial wind horse elephant seemed to dislike the mystical fire demonic rock and increased its speed. However, the mystical fire demonic rock didn't seem to feel the other party's rejection and continued to follow closely. The imperial wind horse elephant is very good at speed, but the mystical fire demonic rock is also very good at speed. I wonder which one of them is faster? Mo Yunjue coldly said. Chapter 5702. Not long later, Xiao Xuanzi came back, but his face was bruised and swollen. Seeing this scene, everyone was not surprised. After all, this guy was so friendly and was so talkative, the imperial wind horse elephant must not be able to take it, so it directly beat him up. Xiao Xuanzi, that imperial wind horse elephant is bigger than you. I think you won't be able to control it. When Xiren looked at Xiao Xuanzi, who still had a nosebleed on his face, and comforted him. Bewitching, who was practicing his sword, turned his head and helplessly shook his head. I think that imperial wind horse elephant is stronger than you better raise your cultivation first. Xiao Xuanzi's eyes lit up. Master, why did you say the same thing as Little Blossom? It said that I'm not strong enough, it doesn't like me like this. Then you should give up. Xiao Bai rolled his eyes. Among them, Xiao Xuanzi was the one who didn't do his job the most. How can I do that? Xiao Xuanzi's face was serious. Didn't I say? Beating is affection and scolding is love. It beat and scolded me, I think you all know what it means. It said that I'm not strong enough. It must be because it hates iron for not becoming steel. Female beasts always care about their face. Wait until I'm stronger than her, she will accept me. Everyone who was originally sympathetic to Xiao Xuanzi did not want to say anything after hearing Xiao Xuanzi's words. This guy's face was thicker than a city wall. Although his face was injured, his heart was not hurt at all. Am I wrong? Xiao Xuanzi's face was filled with pride. Annoying. Too annoying. Everyone turned their heads. They might as well cultivate. Although everyone was not optimistic about Xiao Xuanzi and Little Blossom, what was worth being happy about was that Xiao Xuanzi was cultivating harder. The mystic fire demon rock was a high-level existence among the beasts. There was a bloodline left behind from ancient times in its body. Its cultivation talent was not weak at all. Once it cultivated with all its might, the results were not bad. Noticing this, everyone revealed a satisfied expression. Although Xiao Xuanzi's love came out of nowhere, it still had the effect of promoting. We've been here for a while, it's time to go back and take a look, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Back in the desert world and the ocean world, 3 days inside the desert world was equivalent to 1 day outside. Ever since they came to the abandoned immortal forest, time had returned to normal. Because this was the immortal region, a previously uninhabited world. Indeed. We also need to go back and buy some things. Bewitching nodded. The most important thing was to see his parents-in-law. They were all used to staying in the abandoned immortal forest, but they couldn't forget about their family. He didn't know if the Xiao family and the Jun family would make any moves in these 2 months. Are you guys going back? Zhong Limu couldn't help but ask when he heard the discussion between Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Bewitching nodded. Let's go back and take a look today. If everything is fine, we'll come back. All right. Zhong Limu replied with a smile. After making the decision, everyone returned to Granny Hua's residence. It was currently noon. Before they left, they had to complete their mission. When everyone returned, they found Granny Hua brewing medicine in the courtyard. After thinking for a while, everyone guessed that this was probably a medicinal bath prepared for them at night. Why are you back so early today? Chapter 5703. Granny Hua, we were planning to go back today, so we came back first. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was bright and beautiful. After getting along for 2 months, she really liked this kind and lovely old man. Hearing this, Granny Hua was not surprised. She nodded calmly and smiled. Looks like these old fellows are going to complain while you're gone. Everyone smiled. Now that the seniors' food was spoiled by them, if they were to eat the usual food, they would probably think that it tasted bad. Granny, if there's nothing else, we'll be back soon. Granny Hua stopped what she was doing. I was preparing the medicinal bath for you tonight, but since you're going back today, I'll pass this medicine to you. Everyone was surprised. They had asked about it before, but Granny Hua had never told them. You've consumed a lot of energy during your daily cultivation, so the medicinal bath will be very helpful for your bodies. If you're fine after you go back, continue to soak and don't fall behind. Everyone could not help but feel touched. Thank you, Granny Hua. Granny Hua smiled and waved her hand. You little fellows are really polite. You've been thanking me all day, and you'll learn from in the future. I won't thank you. Zhong Limu did not think that he would be pulled out of nowhere, and immediately felt embarrassed. Grandfather said that we're already very familiar with each other, so there's no need for such formalities. That's right. Granny Hua nodded. There's no need for formalities between familiar people. Everyone smiled, knowing that Granny Hua treated them as one of her own. I didn't know that you were going to leave, so I didn't prepare more medicine. Granny Hua turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. I see that you've been wanting to learn for a long time, so I'll pass this prescription to you today. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be stunned. Then, her face was filled with joy. Previously, when she had felt the effects of this medicinal bath, she had hoped to be able to master it. This was because the benefits it provided to cultivators were too great. Expelling the impurities in the body was extremely important to any cultivator, but it was very difficult to do so. She always thought that if she could learn it, she would be able to let her family take a medicinal bath as well. Unfortunately, she didn't know enough about many of the medicinal herbs in the immortal domain, so even if she studied the medicinal herbs in this medicinal bath every day, there were still some aspects that she couldn't determine. She had also tested Granny Hua before, but Granny Hua had never told her. She did not expect Granny Hua to be willing to teach her today. Most importantly, it turned out that Granny Hua had already seen through her thoughts. Before she could say a word of thanks, Bailey Hongzhuang swallowed it back. She then smiled brightly and said, "Granny Hua, you're so nice." Granny Hua smiled and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a satisfied expression. "That's more like it. I see that you seem to be very interested in medicine. If you want to learn, I can teach you when I have time in the future." Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up and her pretty face became even more dazzling due to her excitement. The corners of her lips kept rising and it seemed like she was about to lose control. "If Granny is willing to teach, I'll definitely learn it well." Granny Hua chuckled and handed the medicine she had prepared to Bailey Hongzhuang. Then she wrote another prescription. Chapter 5704. There are still some medicinal ingredients here, you can bring them back. Granny Hua pointed at the medicinal ingredients not far away. "These were originally prepared for you guys." Looking in the direction that Granny Hua was pointing at, everyone realized that the medicinal ingredients that Granny Hua had been drying these past few days were all prepared for them. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was proficient in medicinal ingredients, understood that although Granny Hua had been drying medicinal ingredients previously, there weren't so many of them. Later on, these were all prepared for them. Thinking about it, after they went to cultivate, Granny Hua hadn't been idle and had gone to pick medicinal ingredients. Although the abandoned immortal forest was rich in medicinal ingredients, they consumed quite a lot of them every day, so Granny Hua had probably spent a lot of time. For a moment, everyone was moved. Compared to what Granny Hua had done for them, their daily lives were nothing. Before leaving, Granny Hua took out a few medical books and handed them to Bailey Hongzhuang. "If you have time, take a look at these medical books. There are many types of medicinal ingredients in them. Only by understanding the types of medicinal ingredients will you be able to learn faster from me in the future." Looking at the heavy medical books in her hands, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded seriously. "Granny, I will definitely remember the contents of these books." "Since you're so serious, I believe you." Granny Hua's eyes were filled with admiration. "It's been a long time since I've seen such lovable children. Go back and come back when you're free. This sword move isn't finished yet." Everyone nodded. After practicing for 2 months, although everyone had made quite a bit of progress compared to when they had just arrived, they were still far from reaching Zhongli Mu's level. "Hongzhuang, your dream has come true. Granny Hua is willing to teach you." Shengguan Yinging had a smile on her face. She knew that Hongzhuang had this thought, but she didn't say it out loud. "That's right," Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "Granny Hua isn't only skilled in medicine, she's also skilled in alchemy. Previously, President Lu told me that a grade 10 alchemist is much stronger than a grade 9 alchemist. Previously, I didn't know the difference between a grade 10 alchemist and a grade 10 alchemist, but I'm certain that Granny Hua is an existence that surpasses a grade 10 alchemist." Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with certainty. Even though she had never truly seen Granny Hua concoct dawn, she could feel the strength of Granny Hua's foundation just by looking at her occasionally. An alchemist who surpasses the 10th grade? Xiren couldn't help but be surprised. He's actually that powerful? Not only Granny Hua, but the other seniors are also very powerful existences. Bewitching's face turned serious. Even such a peerless expert lives in the abandoned immortal forest. I wonder how terrifying the immortal domain is. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but fall silent. The current situation in the sky had already made them deeply aware of how terrifying the immortal domain was. The difference in strength between the upper realm and the immortal domain was truly shocking. Back then, even Bai Yunjiao and He Shenjun couldn't escape this calamity. Let's not think about this for now. In any case, we still have time. Bailey Hongzhuang's laughter broke the heavy atmosphere. Don't all experts cultivate? Who knows, when the time comes, we might also become experts in the immortal domain. That's right, I have confidence in us. Shengguan Ying raised her arms high with a face full of confidence. After coming out of the primordial chaos ring, everyone opened the room. Chapter 5705. If you come out, we have something to talk about. When they saw the note on the door, everyone looked at each other and immediately walked out. Bewitching, Hongzhuang, you guys go and see what's going on. We'll wait here for your news. Mo Yunjue said in a deep voice. Okay, then we'll go first. Bewitching nodded. He didn't say anything else and quickly rushed out with Bailey Hongzhuang. They didn't know when this note was written, and they didn't know if it was too late. Logically speaking, everything has been very calm for a while. There shouldn't be any problems. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned and kept thinking, could it be that the Xiao family and the Jun family did something again? I don't know. Bewitching shook his head. The Xiao family and the Jun family don't dare to confront us directly. If they called us here, then it should be about Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou. The two immediately rushed to the patriarch's residence and met Di Xiaofeng on the way. Seeing the two appear, Di Xiaofeng let out a sigh of relief. You two finally appeared. Big brother, what happened? Actually, it's not a big deal. It's just that the Xiao family and the Jun family have some movements recently. Father wants to inform you in advance. Also, there's an opportunity to gain experience. Father wants us to go together. After hearing this news, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching let out a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't a very serious matter, then they could think of a way to deal with it. Father happens to be in the study. You guys can go directly. Okay. When Diyujue saw Bewitching and Mo Yunjue, a comfortable smile appeared on his face. You're out? Bewitching smiled and nodded. You can say so. Diyujue carefully sized up the two of them, and a wisp of surprise quietly flashed across his brows. He has already broken through to Nebula Stage 9? It seems that the results of this period of seclusion are not bad. Father, we've always been working hard on our cultivation. We don't dare to slack off at all. Bewitching was all smiles. Although they had been practicing their swordsmanship for a while, their cultivation was also steadily improving. This speed was even faster than when he cultivated all day. It was precisely because he had exhausted all his origin power that his cultivation speed was even faster. Zhong Limu had been using this method to cultivate since he was young. It was hard for him not to improve his strength. I can see that. Diyujue nodded. His handsome face had one word written on it, satisfaction. Father, I heard from Big Brother that the Jun family and the Xiao family seem to have made some moves. Bewitching returned to the main topic. He was still very concerned about this point. Diyujue's expression also became more serious as he said, Indeed, this is the news I heard a few days ago. I heard that Jun Lingxuan and Xiao Shou found a new master and are now learning from that master. It can be said that they are improving at lightning speed. New master? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Which powerful senior is it? This person is called Shuyu. He is a famous expert in the upper realm. Usually, there are many cultivators who want to learn from him, but he has never taken in any disciples. I don't know why he took in Xiao Shou and Jun Lingxuan as his disciples this time. Diyujue's face darkened. When he heard this news, his heart sank. This wasn't good news at all. Chapter 5706. If it was someone else, I wouldn't have to worry. However, Shuyu is different. Shuyu is a publicly recognized expert. I heard that there is a higher realm beyond the upper realm. However, that person was very vague about it. Even if I wanted to know more about it, I didn't have the chance to. This Shuyu had once been to that higher world. Diyujue's face darkened. He looked at the sky outside the house. I went to see that person before. His cultivation and knowledge are far beyond ordinary cultivators. However, he rejected Xiao Feng as his disciple. All these years, he hasn't accepted any disciples. I thought that he had given up on the idea. I didn't expect them to take the initiative. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching looked at each other. They were surprised. They wanted to ask Diyujue about this. However, they didn't expect Diyujue to bring it up first. If they guessed correctly, the higher realm should be the crossing immortal domain. However, They didn't know how Shu Yu came back after going to the crossing immortal domain. Father, is the place you're talking about the crossing immortal domain? Bewitching asked. You know about the crossing immortal domain? Diujue was surprised. He asked in confusion, how do you know about the crossing immortal domain? Even he had only heard about this place once. He didn't know about the situation there. He didn't expect Bewitching to know about this place. It was too shocking. I heard about it from the owner of the historical remains. Bewitching made up a story. He wanted to tell Diujue about the Chaos Ring. However, after they brought Mo Yunjue to the abandoned immortal forest, Senior Zhong Li told them not to tell anyone about this secret. Although they didn't know why Senior Zhong Li told them that, it wasn't good for them to keep bringing people in. After all, the seniors had only accepted the appearance of the few of them. Otherwise, if they had brought in all the familiar faces, the seniors would probably have ignored them. Granny Hua already spent a lot of time preparing the medicinal baths for them every day. It was impossible for them to teach everyone. As such, they could only do so. I see. Listening to Bewitching's words, Diujue did not doubt him. Bewitching's darkness attribute talent was so outstanding, he knew that the owner of the ruins was definitely not a simple person. It was not strange that he knew about the existence of the crossing immortal domain. Then what did that senior say? Bewitching pondered and shook his head. Senior didn't mention too much about it. I only heard that the crossing immortal domain is the place where cultivators from the upper realm ascend. However, the crossing immortal domain is only a place for transitional immortals. If you want to truly become an immortal, you have to enter the immortal domain. There is an immortal domain above the crossing immortal domain? Diujue was stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect there to be two places that were even higher. Apart from the shock on his face, there was also a trace of complexity. Seems like I'm truly ignorant and inexperienced. I've actually never heard of this immortal realms before. Father, the Shengxian continent is so big. It's normal that there are many places that we don't know about. Chapter 5707. This Shu Yu should have gone to the crossing immortal domain. As for how he came back, I don't know. Diujue sighed. That place is an existence of a higher level. For him to be able to go there, it shows that his cultivation has surpassed most of the people in the upper realm. At least, my strength is not as good as his. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching seemed to have suddenly understood why Diujue was so worried. Since Diujue was not Shu Yu's opponent, there was probably no one in the family who could be his opponent. If Shu Yu stood on the side of the Di family and Xiao family, or even helped them to deal with the Di family, things would become much more troublesome. Such a big family seemed to have a deep foundation, but for a true expert, it was not difficult to deal with them. To catch bandits, one must first catch the leader. As long as the backbone was taken care of, the rest would just be a plate of loose sand. The two of them also felt the threat. If that was really the case, they would have to think of a way. Father, when the boat reaches the bridgehead, everything will be fine. Although I don't know why Shu Yu is willing to help them, things may not necessarily turn for the better. Bewitching consoled, but deep in his eyes, there was a serious and worried look. To him, the Di family was worth protecting with his life. According to what I know, the crossing immortal domain is also a place that the immortal domain looks down on. Only those who perform well in the crossing immortal domain can go to the immortal domain. If the Shu Yu really had the strength, he would not still be in the upper realm. Father, don't worry too much. I believe that the upper realm does not have only one true expert. There will always be a way. Bailey Hongzhuang also consoled. The tall and sturdy man in front of them carried the entire family on his shoulders so that they could have a stable environment. Thinking about it, ever since Shu Yu took Jun Lingshuan and Diujue as his disciples, Diujue had not been able to eat or sleep in peace. Oh, there is actually such a thing? Diujue was a little surprised. He felt as if he had seen a wider world, one that was completely beyond his imagination. Bewitching nodded. Father, there's no point in thinking about this now. The most important thing is that we have to raise our cultivation as soon as possible. Who knows, maybe we can go to the immortal domain together in the future. You little brat, You really dare to dream. Du Jue chuckled, but the haze between his eyebrows was blown away by Bewitching's words. However, what you said makes sense. Who said that we can't go? The atmosphere in the room became relaxed. Du Jue spoke again. This time, other than telling you this, I have another thing to tell you. An ancient battlefield had suddenly appeared in the desert near Shihan City in the northwest. Currently, it was covered by a dense fog. Although some people had already entered, they still couldn't see the situation clearly. The only thing that can be confirmed is that there are many treasures left behind from ancient times. Therefore, all the major forces have decided to send the younger generation to explore. Du Jue's gaze swept across Bewitching and Du Jue's faces. He said in a deep voice, there are definitely many treasures in the ancient battlefield. However, the danger is also very high. This time, both you and Xiaofeng will be going. In addition, some outstanding cultivators from the family will also be going. Last time in the Immortal Cloud Mystery Realm, your performance was very good and made our family the biggest beneficiary. Chapter 5708. Father, why would an ancient battlefield suddenly appear in the northwest? Bewitching was a little surprised. This was also an accidental discovery. Du Jue shook his head and lamented. Previously, a dense fog suddenly appeared in the northwest and a large area of fog enveloped the entire desert. Western Han City felt that this was a little coincidental and sent some soldiers to investigate, but these soldiers never returned. After that, they realized that there was something fishy about this matter, and Western Han City issued this mission to the Mercenary Association. Because the reward was very generous, many mercenaries went there. It seems that a mercenary accidentally touched the opening of this ancient battlefield, and then the ancient battlefield appeared. A mercenary discovered it? Bewitching was slightly surprised. That means that many mercenaries have already entered? No, after the ancient battlefield appeared, some experts went to check it out and found that the restriction on it had not completely dissipated. I'm afraid that we can't go in for the time being, but there is an extremely dense energy near the ancient battlefield. Cultivating there will yield twice the results with half the effort. Recently, many cultivators have already taken the lead to head there. Even cultivating there is extremely good. When I said enter, I meant entering the fog. It is said that this fog will cause cultivators to lose their way, so the soldiers sent by Western Han City did not return. Bewitching and Li Zhenhuang also understood. It seemed that this fog was very strange. This time, Jun Lingshuan and Xiao Souwu will also be going. They have improved quite a bit recently, and the two families have spent a lot of resources to nurture them. Their strength cannot be underestimated. You have to be careful. Du Jue's expression sank slightly, and his brows were tightly knitted together. After experiencing the previous incident, it could be said that they were enemies and their eyes burned with hatred when they met. He did not know what methods Shu Yu would teach the two of them, so he could not help but be worried. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching were clearly not that worried. If Xiao Souwu and Li Zhenhuang were cultivating with Shu Yu, then they were cultivating with Senior Yu, who was not inferior at all. Although they've improved, we've also improved a lot. Bewitching looked relaxed. Father, don't worry. They were defeated by us in the past, and they will still be defeated by us in the future. It's good that you're confident, but don't underestimate the enemy, Du Jue warned. We understand. Since you've already exited your closed-door cultivation, then don't delay and head to Western Desert City as soon as possible. Du Jue said, your mother has already prepared the things you need to bring this time. She's just waiting for you to come out of seclusion. Let's pack up and set off immediately. By the way, other than the cultivators from the various major factions, the Mercenary Union will also send people in. After all, the Mercenary Union was the one who discovered the ancient battlefield. The top experts of the major forces won't enter, but the Mercenary Union is a place where all kinds of people will be present. There are many unknown factors in this trip, but your life is the most important. Before leaving, Du Jue couldn't help but remind him again. This was the concern from a father. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching smiled and nodded. We'll definitely return safely. After leaving the room, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect that we would have to set off so soon after returning. Chapter 5709. Bewitching, go and inform everyone to get ready. I will concoct some more of this medicine. Leave some at home and take some with you. Bailey Hongzhuang said. When she came back, she had already looked through the formula of this medicine. It was not difficult to concoct it. However, it was limited in the amount of herbs. If it was only the few of them, the amount would be enough. However, there were more people in the clan, so it was not enough. Bewitching naturally understood Bailey Hongzhuang's plan. He immediately nodded and said, "Okay, then you go first." The two immediately divided the work. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly returned to her residence. Xiao He and Xiao Bai also followed closely by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. They had experience in this area. Even if they worked together now, their speed was extremely fast. Bewitching first informed Xiren and the others that he was leaving this time. Then he went to see Lin Yunqing. When everything was settled, Bailey Hongzhuang also came out of the house. "Wife, is everything ready?" Bewitching asked with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. The concoction of the medicine is relatively simple. It is also very fast. As an excellent alchemist, concocting medicine was a piece of cake for her. Lin Yunqing, Diu Jue, Xia Wanrong and Di Lin Xian all came. After hearing the conversation between the two, Lin Yunqing could not help but ask, "Bewitching, you just said that Hongzhuang is preparing a gift. What is it that is so mysterious?" Hearing this, Bewitching gave Bailey Hongzhuang a look. Hongzhuang then handed the storage bag to Lin Yunqing. "Mother, this is the medicine I concocted. It will help the cultivator expel the impurities in the body and increase the speed of cultivation." When she said this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel a little guilty. This was completely Granny Hua's potion formula. However, because she could not reveal the existence of Granny Hua, she could only do it herself. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. Di Lin Xian's eyes were filled with surprise. What kind of medicine is this? It can actually expel the impurities in the body? Not only Di Lin Xian, but Diu Jue and the others also had the same expression. There were very few pills that had this kind of effect, let alone a medicine. After undergoing marrow cleansing, it was extremely difficult to achieve such a feat. No one would have thought that such a medicine would exist. However, Hongzhuang had suddenly taken it out. Everyone was pleasantly surprised. "I found it by chance. I haven't had the time to name it yet." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled helplessly. In short, the effect of this medicine is very good. It's best to cultivate until you're exhausted before taking the medicinal bath. The improvement effect will be even more obvious. Hongzhuang is really amazing. She always surprises us. Lin Yunqing smiled. Xiren and the others who were at the side also smiled. Hongzhuang had always wanted to get the formula of this medicine from Granny Hua. Now that she had gotten her wish, the first thing she did was to benefit her family. "Mother, are my father and the others still in closed-door cultivation?" "I've already sent someone to inform them. However, they've been in closed-door cultivation for a while. Although we don't know the exact situation, we can hear the sound of a breakthrough from time to time. It can be seen that the breakthrough speed is extremely fast. Then I'll go and say goodbye to them before leaving." When Bailey Hongzhuang was on her way to the cultivation room, she met Xiao Sou and the others who were rushing over. Chapter 5710. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "The news came so suddenly. I'm afraid we'll have to spend a lot of time on this trip. This is a rare opportunity to gain experience. Who knows, we might be able to raise our cultivation by quite a bit. Let's go if we can." Diu Jue smiled. As a youngster, he naturally had to give it a try. Mu Lingbing was a bit worried. "I heard that this place is very dangerous. Many people don't come out after entering. You must be careful." "Don't worry. Bewitching and Hongzhuang have also been to many places to gain experience. In my opinion, they have more experience than you." Situ Yan smiled at Mu Lingbing. Hearing Situ Yan's words, Mu Lingbing thought about it and agreed. Just take the upper realm for example. Hongzhuang and Bewitching had fought their way up. Beichen, you have to take good care of Hong Zhuang, Mu Jins reminded. Grandmother, don't worry. With me here, I definitely won't let anything happen to Hong Zhuang. At the same time, when Jingwei was also instructing Xiren and Shengguan Yinging. To cultivators, gaining experience was a very normal thing. However, as an elder, he couldn't help but worry. After all, there were unavoidable risks in the training grounds. Especially in the upper realm, there were many unknowns. Mother, we're about to set off. You should stay here for a while. This is a medicine I concocted. It's very helpful for cultivation. Soak in it every night. Bailey Hongzhuang handed the medicine to Mu Lingbing. Father, other than cultivating every day, there are many demon beasts in the back mountain. It's very suitable for training. Di Beichen explained the best way to use the medicine. He could feel that Lan Yunxiao and the rest's cultivation had been rapidly increasing. However, just increasing their cultivation wasn't enough. Fighting was more important. Go in peace. Don't worry about us. We'll be here waiting for you to come back. Lan Yunxiao's face was full of smiles. His handsome face was full of concern, but his eyes, which others couldn't see, were filled with worry. After everything was prepared, everyone set off. Other than them, Bailey Yunyan and many other cultivators from the D family were also traveling with them. In a situation like this where there were forces from all sides, the number of people could still give them an advantage. The one leading the team was still the Great Elder. After the first experience, everyone was already familiar with the route. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others sat on Di Beichen's flying car and followed the first elder's flying car to the northwest. It's said that the mercenary guild will also send people over. I wonder if Huang Futing and the others will be there as well? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. They hadn't seen Huang Futing since he said he was going to train. Because they were in a hurry, they didn't have time to go to Emperor Cloud City to ask. Based on my judgment of Huang Futing, this opportunity, he shouldn't miss it. Di Beichen pondered and said, and this matter has been spreading like wildfire. I think they must also know that we will be there. Maybe they are already waiting for us. If that's really the case, then that's not bad. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. This is a very good opportunity to train. If we can get some good fortune, that would be even better. Chapter 57:11. Yunju, you've been in the mercenary union all this time, so you should have some understanding of it. Why don't you tell us about the situation? Di Beichen turned to look at Di Yujue. So far, he had not been to the mercenary union, so he did not know much about the situation there. The mercenary union in the upper realm is not much different from the lower realm, but the strength of the mercenaries here is stronger. Many idle cultivators gather here and form mercenary teams. I heard that many people from different forces also come here to train, and I met them when I was training. Moreover, the upper realm is vast, and there are many special places, so the missions are divided into different categories. Then did you encounter any trouble when you went there? When Xiren asked, usually a Xiaobai face like yours should be easily disliked by those burly men, right? Mo Yunjue turned to look at Xiren. Do I look like a Xiaobai face? His cold gaze was as sharp as a knife, and with just a look, the air seemed to be frozen. When Xiren spread out his hands and said resentfully, okay, you're not. You brat, just Yunju's gaze is enough to shut those burly men up. Shengguan Yingying chuckled. However, I can be sure that Yunju's mission in the mercenary union will be very smooth. Why? Think about it, Yunju is so handsome, the girls in the mercenary union will probably stare at him. Isn't it easy to complete the mission? Shengguan Yingying said matter-of-factly. As soon as she said that, everyone turned to look at Mo Yunjue, but the latter did not say anything. Bailey Hongzhuang gave Shengguan Yingying a look of admiration. She saw through it at a glance. Huang Futing has his own team. I noticed that someone wanted to join his team, but he rejected them. At that time, I thought it was a little strange because that person was not weak, and they just happened to be going on a difficult mission, so they should not have rejected. Later, I found out that they were dark cultivators, and everything became clear. I see. Di Beichen understood. It's inevitable that someone would see through it. Previously, he had been worried about this problem. Once he was targeted, it would be troublesome. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Not everyone has such good eyesight as Yunjue. There are still very few people who find it. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest arrived at Western Desert City, they discovered that the entire city was bustling with noise and excitement. The huge city was already filled with people, and this scene was comparable to the grand occasion in Piercing Wind City. These people want to enter the ancient battlefield? Xiren was surprised. He didn't know how big the ancient battlefield was. Would these people fill up the entire ancient battlefield? This time, the sudden appearance of the ancient battlefield made it impossible to prevent the news from spreading. Moreover, the number of people in the Mercenary Association was already very large, so it was impossible to control. Although the various major forces have already limited the range of cultivator strength, you still have to be careful. No one can guarantee that there won't be people who will fish in troubled waters, the Great Elder warned. Everyone nodded. The current situation was far beyond their control. Chapter 57:12. The ancient battlefield appeared in the desert outside Shihan City. The people gathered in the city are mainly new cultivators. Of course, there are also many merchants. With so many people here, the business opportunities are naturally limitless. The Great Elder smiled faintly as he led everyone forward. The information we have is from the past. Different things happen here every day, so before we go, I have to understand the latest situation. If there are no problems, I will bring you all along. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Because Bewitching and the others were in seclusion and had been on the road for a while, the news the D family received was from half a month ago. No one knew if anything else had happened in this half a month. Bewitching, your family is really big. No matter which city you go to, you have your own people. Xiren looked at the old man who was happily chatting with the Great Elder and couldn't help but sigh. Our family has stood tall for so many years, so we have some relationship with most cities. It's not just us, the other families are the same. Di Xiaofeng smiled. Even if they didn't have any relationship before, they will definitely send people to investigate after this incident. So as long as we come, we will definitely get the latest news. I see. Xiren understood. Although the Cloud Sword sect's influence in the lower realm wasn't small, it was undeniable that they couldn't do this. While the Great Elder was understanding the situation, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were sizing up the situation in the city. All kinds of cultivators were gathered here. There were cultivators entering the city at every moment, and these cultivators often formed teams one after another. The entire city was bustling with noise and excitement. Pill shops, weapon shops, and other cultivation-related shops were all bustling with business. One could even vaguely hear that they were sold out. This is probably the most lively Shihan City has been in these years. Di Xiaofeng smiled and shook his head. In the past, although Shihan City wasn't small, because of its remote location, it wasn't very lively. Every time this small world appears, it can always bring about a city. Bailey Yunyan smiled faintly. They had obviously heard of this situation many times. Look, that person looks familiar. Is he from the Shao clan? Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze locked onto a man in front of her. She remembered seeing him in the Piercing Wind City before. Everyone followed Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze. The man was also sizing up Bailey Hongzhuang. Only when he felt everyone's gaze did he turn his head and stop watching. That's right. This person is from the Shao clan, Di Beichen affirmed. We came late this time. I believe that the Jun family and the Shao family have already arrived. Di Xiaofeng spread out his hands, but his expression was very calm. Soon, you will see most of the people you met in the immortal cloud mystic realm. Murong Jing, Chen Feng, and Jiang Wenyan should have arrived as well, right? A faint smile appeared on his chiseled face. It was like the sun in March, warm and bright. Di Xiaofeng nodded. They won't miss such an opportunity. Chapter 57:13. Look, isn't that the Saint of Light? Among the crowd, a cultivator's gaze locked onto Bailey Hongzhuang. After taking a closer look, he could not help but cry out in surprise. As soon as he said that, he immediately attracted the attention of many cultivators. Everyone turned their heads, and a look of pleasant surprise appeared on their faces. That's the D family's team. That's right, that's the Saint of Light. If it weren't for the incident in Western Desert City, I'm afraid I wouldn't have had the chance to see the real Saint of Light. Many curious and pleasantly surprised gazes landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. The incident of the Sacred Assembly of Light had already spread throughout the entire upper realms several months ago. As for the portrait of the Saint of Light, it had also spread to every branch of the Sacred Assembly of Light. Everyone had long heard that the Saint of Light was as beautiful as a fairy. When they saw the portrait, they already had such a feeling. It was only when they saw her in person that they were shocked. In a short time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were surrounded by many cultivators. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not expect such a situation to occur. They were all stunned and could not help but smile. My wife, your reputation is now much greater than mine. Your husband will have to rely on you in the future. Bewitching chuckled. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Bewitching. I'll think about it. The D family came a little late this time. The Xiao family and the Jun family came a while ago. It looks like there's going to be a good show to watch. Isn't that so? I think that with the appearance of the ancient battlefield this time, the relationship between the three great forces might change again. The complicated relationship between the three great families had long been known to everyone. Especially after Bailey Hongzhuang took away the position of the Saint of Light, this conflict could be said to have risen to the peak. There had been no news for several months, and it was likely that something was going to happen again. The Great Elder was originally chatting with his family in Western Desert City when he suddenly realized that his team was almost surrounded by a group of cultivators. He immediately walked over. After discovering that everyone was interested in Bailey Hongzhuang's situation, he felt relieved and began to update everyone on the recent situation. There should still be some time before the ancient battlefield's restriction dissipates completely. Recently, the essence force that is spreading out is getting denser and denser. The surrounding cultivators have all come here because of its reputation. This is an excellent opportunity to raise their cultivation level. Almost all the cultivators from the major forces have arrived. Let's set off now. Hearing this, everyone nodded and immediately followed behind the first elder as they walked quickly towards the desert. It is said that the yuan qi emitted from the ancient battlefield far exceeds the yuan qi that one normally cultivates. Not only is it denser, but it also contains a unique law of heaven and earth. In this short period of time, many cultivators have already made breakthroughs, so all of you must also grasp this opportunity and work hard to improve your own cultivation, the Great Elder advised. Everyone looked at each other and became even more interested in this. I wonder what kind of heaven and earth yuan qi it is to have such a good effect. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered and said, it's rare to have such a good opportunity. Why didn't Father and the others come together? This kind of environment was not only beneficial to them, but also to all the cultivators. Chapter 57:14. I don't think everyone will turn a blind eye to such a good opportunity. Mo Yunjue said slowly. The Great Elder smiled faintly and said nothing. Everyone walked in the desert. Not long after, everyone found that a large number of cultivators appeared in front of them. They were densely packed and looked particularly conspicuous in this endless desert. In addition, everyone found that the desert, which was originally very clear, was shrouded in a layer of white mist, making the situation in front hazy and unclear. Noticing this scene, everyone knew that this was the place where the ancient battlefield appeared. With the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and her party, they immediately attracted a lot of people's attention. The D family's people are finally here. Their speed is really slow this time. It's most likely that D Beichin or D Xiaofeng are in close cultivation, so they are late. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and her party. Even if they didn't know the specific situation, they could guess it. Bailey Hongzhuang and others just casually glanced around and found many familiar forces. There were many tents. As far as the eye could see, the endless tents were lined up in a straight line. There was a flag hanging on these tents with the names of the major forces written on it. With a casual glance, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed the flags of the Xiao family and the Jun family, which were very close to the center. There is our family's flag there. Di Xiaofeng pointed to a flag not far from the Xiao family and said. Hearing this, everyone turned their eyes and found the Di family's flag fluttering in the wind. Great Elder, we've only just arrived, but you've already prepared everything? Di Beichen was a little surprised. He was worried that he would not be able to find a good position if he came late. Now it seemed that he was worried for nothing. The family master has sent people to occupy the position as soon as he heard the news. The Great Elder smiled and said, Look, the Lin family's team has also arrived. As soon as the Great Elder's voice fell, Lin Yi's figure had already appeared in everyone's sight. Second cousin, you're so late. Lin Yi smiled mischievously and got close to Bailey Hongzhuang. Second cousin-in-law, did something happen that delayed you? Previously, we were in seclusion and did not know about the ancient battlefield. Father was worried that it would affect our cultivation and did not disturb us. After we found out, we rushed over immediately. I see. Lin Yi understood. The vitality here is very rich. It's really suitable for cultivation. I broke through 2 days ago. You can't waste this good opportunity. With that said, Lin Yi held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked forward. Her pretty face was full of sunshine. Di Xiaofeng looked at the smiling Lin Yi and quietly breathed a sigh of relief. As sharp as he was, he could still feel the change in Lin Yi's expression. Di Beichen patted Di Xiaofeng's shoulder. He is much better now. Don't worry. He also paid attention to Lin Yi's expression. In fact, since Lin Yi appeared, her eyes did not stay on Di Xiaofeng for a moment. It seemed that she deliberately did not look at him. But in any case, she was getting better. After so many years of love, it would not completely dissipate in a short time. What's more, there was still awkwardness now. This would take time to gradually dilute. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.